I'm Haley B. Miller, and this is Ohio Politics Explained, a podcast where you give us 15 minutes and we give you all the news you need to sound smart and impress your friends. Welcome to a special episode of Ohio Politics Explained. Today, we're talking all about property taxes. And yes, we've been here before. Property taxes have been the issue at the State House for at least a year now. But after lawmakers celebrated the passage of several bills last year, I started to wonder, now what? To answer that question, my colleagues and I talked to homeowners, state officials, and advocates who want to abolish property taxes. And Anthony Shoemaker is here to pepper me with questions about our story.
Hi, Haley. You are the property tax expert here.
I suppose so.
The big question that a lot of people have is, when are people going to feel any relief from the property tax bills that Governor DeWine signed late last year? The governor said those were a good start, but they're not perfect. So when are people going to notice anything different?
So DeWine signed a few different bills in December, but I think House Bill 186 probably has the biggest direct impact on homeowners. So under that, all homeowners who live in their homes will see their owner occupancy credit gradually increase over 4 years. Once it's fully phased in, this means an extra $230 for someone who's currently getting $1,000 from the state. But before that, something a little bit more immediate, there are many people who will see new tax credits on their second bill this year. This is part of a new policy that ties tax hikes to inflation and also makes up for the massive increases we saw in 2023 and 2024. This only applies to people in school districts at the 20 mil floor, but that's about 3/4 of Ohio school districts right now, and they're mostly in small towns and rural areas. So with this tax credit, the amount varies by school district. If you're in Cincinnati public schools, for example, you're going to get about $80 per $100,000 of your home's market value. In Dublin City schools, that amount is $11. Basically, the more your taxes went up, the bigger your tax credit.
So people are going to feel something, but are they going to feel enough? What are the critics saying about these bills, and are they going far enough for homeowners?
Yeah, I think a lot of people will say it's better than nothing, but critics also don't think these credits are enough to truly help the people who are struggling the most. I talked to a woman in Fairfield County for this story and calculated her tax credit. She's going to get about $500 this year, but her property taxes went up by $4,700. So again, not nothing, but also not a huge dent. And there's also some frustration with these tax credits that, homeowners in wealthier school districts are still getting these tax credits, and it's not necessarily targeting the seniors, low-income folks that really need the help right now.
So, Haley, there's an effort right now to collect signatures to put a complete property tax ban on the November ballot. I mean, I know when we've had events with the public, it's one of the issues people come up to us and talk about. Some people just want property taxes to go away. They just don't think that property taxes should be used to fund these programs. And it's for people on fixed incomes and stuff like that. We hear a lot from seniors complaining about the high price of their property taxes. What do you think, where do things stand with this effort to put it on the ballot?
So this group has been gathering signatures since last year now, and they have until July to get about 413,000 signatures to put the proposed amendment on the November ballot. Leaders of the group have not wanted to say publicly how many signatures they have, so we don't have a way to know at this point how close or how far from that mark they are. But, they're out there, they're holding signing events at businesses, even some people at their own homes. They're going to gun shows and things like that. I'm in their Facebook group, and it's a very active community and a lot of people who are very frustrated.
Yeah, and Governor DeWine sounds pretty I don't know, scared is the right word, but, there's some nervousness from leaders about what would happen if this was to get on the ballot and pass. He said recently that Ohio could see a huge spike in sales taxes if this property tax ban were to pass. What's the mood around this effort?
A lot of people in the state house are freaked out about it because losing property tax revenue would be a major hole in basically everyone's budget. But it's there's a divide on how seriously people are taking this because it is so hard to get an amendment on the ballot. This is truly a grassroots effort. I think some people believe that they're just not going to be able to do it because this is a hard thing to do. We'll see what happens. But again, the anger is there. People are mobilizing. And when I've talked to people involved in this effort, they have said that this is really an action of last resort. They didn't immediately set out to abolish property taxes, but, they felt like they were shouting into the void for several years about their struggles with their taxes. There's long been a push for something that will help seniors specifically, as you alluded to. They're on fixed incomes. They may not be working anymore, and yet their property taxes keep going up. So this was just kind of a buildup after years and years of not feeling heard, and that's where we got to where we are.
What kind of a deadline are they facing to put it on the ballot?
So they have until July. And like I said, they started collecting signatures last year. They got this proposal approved last year, I think even last spring. So it's been a while. I mean, they've been collecting signatures for a while. The conventional wisdom for any ballot issue is that even though you technically only need 413,000, you should probably collect double that just to account for any errors that the Secretary of State's office is going to find.
Yeah, and you have to get them from, 44 counties. Can't just go stand outside of a stadium and get all the signatures.
Right. And, right now is kind of a sleepy time, I think, for really any signature gathering effort because it's cold out. But once the weather warms up a little bit, they'll be collecting signatures for part of summer. So you'll probably see people at, fairs or other, summer events.
The new laws passed late last year are not going to be the end of Ohio lawmakers taking on property taxes. There's been talk about legislation to make it harder to pass tax levies or even to have a property tax freeze for seniors. What ideas are you hearing about from lawmakers and solutions that are being discussed?
We could probably spend an entire episode just on all the property tax bills that have been introduced the last couple of years. Lawmakers are really throwing paint at the wall to see what's going to stick. There are a lot of different ideas out there. You mentioned a couple of the more prominent examples. There was a bill introduced the other week that would expand the owner occupancy credit, for instance. But I think the real problem that lawmakers are facing, as Senator Bill Blessing put it to me, is that, they are redoing the drywall when the foundation is crumbling. There's a really big debate in the state house as to whether the state should be chipping in more money to help people to lessen the property tax burden, because Ohio relies really heavily on property taxes to fund schools and other local services. We have one of the highest property tax burdens in the country. And so you see this push and pull from lawmakers on, should or should not the state be doing more. And a lot of the Republicans don't think so. They think that property taxes need to be funded by locals who are, using these services. And they feel like the state already does enough. We talked about some of the tax credits that exist or will exist to offset the property tax burden. So there's just like this really foundational debate that still has not been settled, and a larger disagreement over, is the state doing enough to pay for schools and things like that. And that just makes it really difficult, I think, to get to the deep, deep issues that we see with property taxes.
Haley, Ohio's just one of 50 states. Is there anything working in other states to help homeowners that Ohio is considering or could look at?
So last year I wrote about what's called a circuit breaker. A lot of other states have done this Senator Blessing, other lawmakers that I've talked to about property taxes have pitched this idea for Ohio. They look different in different states, but it's basically a program to help people who spend a disproportionate amount of their income on property taxes and even rent sometimes. So this is usually seniors, low-income people, states. Again, every program looks different, but states will kind of set parameters based on age, income threshold, things like that. And there are a lot of people in Ohio who think this is a good idea. There are also a lot of people who don't think it's a good idea because it would require the state to pay more. But I mean, we've seen circuit breakers in red states, blue states. So it's one of the more used ideas out there.
Well, it definitely looks like property taxes are going to stay a key issue for the near future. Haley, is there anything else you want to bring up on this?
I think we covered most of it. As you said, this is still going to be something that's top of mind for lawmakers, certainly top of mind for homeowners who are getting new tax bills this year, and we'll see what happens with the ballot issue.
The only two certain things are death and taxes, right?